Picture this: the most powerful men in England, lords, ministers, even future founding fathers, slipping into underground caves at night, behind torch-lit walls carved with strange symbols. Masked figures feasted, mocked the church, and performed rituals so outrageous that whispers still echo 3 centuries later. What really happened in those forbidden chambers? Was it drunken parody, satanic ritual, or the birthplace of revolutionary ideas? What secrets were they hiding from the world? In this video, you'll uncover the shocking truth about what went on inside those chalk caves, why politicians and priests risked everything to attend. Was it a sexual freedom? How their bizarre games of blasphemy shaped revolutions on both sides of the Atlantic, and the chilling rumors that still cling to the ruins of their gatherings. You'll see why the Hellfire Club was more than just debauchery. It was a dangerous experiment in power, faith, and freedom. This is the untold truth of the Hellfire Club, a society where power, pleasure, and blasphemy collided in ways the world was never meant to see. And if you love wandering through history's strangest shadows, don't forget to subscribe, because the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. By day, these men were pillars of virtue. By night, they descended into chalk caves beneath the English countryside, where the rules of God and man didn't exist. What they created wasn't just a scandal. It was a secret laboratory of ideas that would ripple across the world. It all began with one man, Sir Francis Dashwood, an aristocrat, a politician, and by daylight, a perfectly respectable gentleman. He sat in Parliament, shook hands with royalty, and was the kind of man you'd see painted in oils, framed in gold, staring nobly at his estate. But at night, that noble portrait cracked. Dashwood wasn't content with ballrooms and hunting parties. He wanted something darker, something forbidden, something that mocked everything England swore it stood for. So he gathered his friends, powerful men, wealthy men, men who controlled policy, wealth, and armies. Together they would form a society hidden from the eyes of the church, the press, and even their wives. The Hellfire Club, a name whispered like a curse. Dashwood didn't choose a ballroom or a palace. No, he carved into the earth itself. He expanded a network of ancient chalk caves beneath his estate in West Wickham. Imagine walking down torch-lit tunnels, dripping with damp, carved with pagan statues, echoes of footsteps that never end. And in those caves ran a black underground river. They called it the Styx, after the river of death from Greek mythology. To enter the deepest chambers, members boarded small boats, candles in hand, crossing that dark water as if they were journeying to the underworld. And in a sense, they were. So what happened once inside? That's the question that drives centuries of rumor. Some say the club gathered simply to drink, to feast, and to enjoy the company of women. Scandalous, yes, but hardly satanic. Others claim much darker things. It's said that the chambers were decorated like temples to gods long forgotten, that members wore robes, masks, and crowns of laurel leaves like some twisted Roman senate. Some whispers speak of mock religious ceremonies, where women dressed as nuns poured wine into skulls, and men raised goblets in the name of Bacchus, god of debauchery. Others say they went further, mock crucifixions, staged funerals, drunken sermons where the Bible was read backward. Some even claim Dashwood dressed up as stuffed baboon in papal robes, sat it on a throne, and forced aristocrats to kneel before it in mock prayer. It sounds insane. It sounds like a nightmare. But these stories spread because secrecy breeds imagination, and every guest left with rumors too scandalous to keep inside. But here's what makes it stranger. These weren't reckless teenagers or bored noblemen. The Hellfire Club's ranks included some of the most powerful men of the age. Politicians, lords, writers, thinkers. Men whose decisions shaped the very laws of England. And one guest, perhaps the strangest of all, was none other than Benjamin Franklin. Yes, the man whose face now sits on the $100 bill, the American founding father. He spent time in Dashwood's company, visited those caves, and is believed to have taken part in at least some of the gatherings. So when America would soon rise against Britain, fueled by radical ideas of liberty and revolution, well, some historians quietly ask, were those sparks of freedom whispered, not in daylight debates, but in the flickering shadows of the Hellfire caves? Now, let's get real. Some historians argue all of this was nothing more than a drinking club. Just bored aristocrats mocking religion, exaggerating their sins and playing at rebellion. But others say the opposite, that the secrecy itself proves there was something more, because every time the club was mentioned in public, the rumors turned darker. Some spoke of orgies that lasted until dawn. Some claimed live animals were sacrificed. Others whispered they performed fake resurrections, dragging naked men from coffins while chanting blasphemous prayers. And the fact that nobody could prove it made it worse. Imagine you're a citizen in 18th century England. You hear your leaders vanish underground at night. And then you hear rumors of mock crucifixions and women dressed as nuns pouring wine from skulls. What would you believe? The whispers became so strong that even the newspapers began hinting at scandal. Preachers warned of England's moral decay, and ordinary people, already struggling with poverty and hunger, were told that their rulers were not pious guardians of God's kingdom, but devils in wigs and silk stockings. It was terrifying, it was thrilling, and it was impossible to stop. Now here's the strangest part. Some argue the Hellfire Club was more than just a scandal. They say it was philosophy in disguise, that behind the orgies and blasphemies, Dashwood and his companions were asking dangerous questions. What if religion was just control? What if morality was just a leash? What if the future belonged not to priests and kings, but to men who could think, laugh, and sin freely? It sounds insane, but those ideas echo in the revolutions that soon followed. In America, in France, across Europe. Could it be that the drunken rituals of the Hellfire caves were, in some twisted way, the birthplace of modern freedom? Or was it all just an excuse to party in the dark while pretending to be philosophers? The club didn't last forever. Eventually, secrecy turned to scandal. Scandal turned to outrage. And Dashwood stepped back into the light. The caves were sealed, the rumors locked away, but the legend never died. Even today, tourists walk those tunnels. Even today, candles flicker in the chambers, as though the shadows never left. And even today, historians argue, were the Hellfire Club members monsters of sin, Jokers mocking religion or visionaries cloaked in scandal? The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in the dark. So, what do you think? Were the Hellfire Club just rich men playing dress-up? Or were they a secret society that shaped revolutions from the shadows? History hides its strangest truths in places we least expect. And if you've enjoyed this dive into Forbidden's history, give this video a like and subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries of the past. Because this was just one club, and there are dozens more societies waiting to be uncovered. The caves at West Wickham may have been carved from chalk, but the stories carved into them were stranger than stone could ever hold. Because the deeper you look into the Hellfire Club, the more twisted, absurd, and almost unbelievable the rumors become. And yet behind each exaggeration is a kernel of truth. That's what makes it so irresistible. Let's peel back the masks. We ended with Sir Francis Dashwood, the founder of the club. But to understand him is to understand why the Hellfire Club was never just a drunken gathering. By daylight, Dashwood was respectable, educated, refined. He was a member of Parliament, later even Chancellor of the Exchequer, the man responsible for the country's finances. Imagine someone like the modern Minister of Finance sneaking off at night to conduct rituals in caves. But Dashwood was also obsessed with travel, and every country he visited added fuel to his fascination with the Forbiddens. In Italy, he drank with scholars who whispered against the Vatican. In the Ottoman Empire, he saw Islamic rituals and harems that shocked his Anglican upbringing. In Greece, he walked ruins dedicated to Bacchus, Pan, and Aphrodite. And somewhere along the way, he asked himself a question a few English gentlemen dared to ask. Why should the past's gods be forgotten? Why should desire and pleasure be condemned? The Hellfire Club was his answer. It wasn't just rebellion, it was resurrection. A revival of ancient freedoms in a country suffocating under religion and morality. But of course, it was also fun. This wasn't a club you stumbled into. Membership was exclusive, secretive, and heavily disguised. The club's motto, whispered through the ages, was Fais que tu voudras, French for do what thou wilt. If that phrase rings a bell, it should. It was later made infamous by occultist Aleister Crowley in the 20th century. But Dashwood's crew was saying it 150 years earlier. And who were these gentlemen of sin? John Wilkes, a radical politician, hated by the establishment who used wit like a weapon. The Earl of Sandwich, yes, the very man after whom the sandwich is named, who reportedly mixed politics with scandal in ways that would make tabloids drool. Benjamin Franklin, not a permanent member but a guest. The founding father who flirted with danger as easily as he flirted with women. Plus dukes, poets, barons, military men England's respectable faces by day, masks of mischief by night. Each wore robes and masks, concealing identity, though everyone knew who was really there. Secrecy wasn't about hiding from each other. It was about protecting the outside world from what they might discover. What did they actually do inside the caves? Here, history dissolves into rumor, but the rumors are so wild they deserve telling. Banquets in the dark. The men dined underground, feasting on roasted meats, spilling wine, and eating by candlelight. The tables were said to be carved in the shape of coffins, so that every bite was a mock communion with death. Mock religious ceremonies. Members dressed as monks, chanting psalms twisted into obscene versions. Women, sometimes dressed as nuns, served wine in chalices said to be human skulls. Masks of sin. Imagine masked figures dancing, anonymous yet powerful. Some masks resembled devils, some Roman gods, some grotesque caricatures of bishops. Every mask was a statement of rejection of the roles they played in daylight. The monkey pope. Here's one of the strangest rumors, that Dashwood once dressed alive, baboon in papal robes, placed it on a throne and forced guests to kneel before it. Whether it happened or not, the story spread like wildfire and the absurdity made it unforgettable. Sexual freedom. Women were almost certainly part of the gatherings, though whether they were mistresses, sex workers, or co-conspirators varies in the accounts. Rumors of orgies dominate, but some say the gatherings were less about excess and more about freedom. Sexual, intellectual, spiritual, satanic worship. Here's the twist. Despite the Hellfire name, there's little evidence of actual devil worship. Instead, the rituals mocked Christianity, celebrated paganism, and embraced pleasure. But for 18th century England, mocking God was worse than worshiping the devil. If there was one detail that cemented the Hellfire Club's reputation, it was this: to enter the innermost chambers, guests had to cross an underground river. By torchlight, they stepped into boats, the water black and endless beneath them. The river's name? The Styx, the mythical river of the dead from Greek lore. Imagine being rowed through the silence, the only sound the drip of water and the creak of wood, as shadows stretched across chalk walls carved with pagan symbols. And at the other side, chambers decorated with altars, statues of gods, and tables already laden with wine and flesh. It wasn't just a party. It was theater. It was rebirth. And it was terrifying. Now let's pause on Franklin. He was already a man of reputation, a diplomat in London, charming, witty, a lover of fine company. But when he visited Dashwood, he couldn't resist the invitation into the caves. Did he participate? Almost certainly. He was no stranger to taverns, women, and intellectual rebellion. In fact, his letters reveal an interest in satire, blasphemy, and poking fun at religion. And here's the thought: could one of America's founding fathers who preached liberty, reason, and virtue have carried inspiration from a society infamous for drunkenness, masked orgies, and mocking God? It sounds insane, but freedom often grows from forbidden soil. As the years went by, the Hellfire Club became harder to keep secret. Servants whispered. Guests bragged. Rumors reached the press. The newspapers hinted at debauchery among England's elite. Preachers thundered about moral decay. And every story grew more exaggerated than the last. The Earl of Sandwich, yes. Him again once used his political power to attack John Wilkes, another Hellfire member. In retaliation, Wilkes published a pornographic parody mocking Sandwich's hypocrisy. It was obscene, it was scandalous, and it all tied back to the caves. Soon, Hellfire wasn't just a name. It was a curse word whispered in Parliament. The club couldn't last forever. By the 1760s, Dashwood began withdrawing from politics. The caves fell into silence. Members moved on, some to disgrace, others to greater power. The legend remained, growing in the absence of fact. Some said the devil himself was once seen in the caves, vanishing in a flash of fire. Others claimed the spirits of the women who served still lingered, whispering in the tunnels. And every time a visitor lit a candle in those dark chambers, shadows danced like masks, reminders that power and sin are never far apart. The Hellfire Club wasn't just scandal. It was the performance of rebellion. By mocking the church, by embracing secrecy, by drinking and feasting and sinning in masks, they created a mythology larger than their actual acts. And mythology is what survives. Today, when we think of the Hellfire Club, we don't imagine boring aristocrats sipping wine. We imagine coffins, rivers of death, monkey popes, and masked figures dancing in candlelit caves. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what Dashwood wanted.